the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, niggas don't know what to think. Thought I get money, you change. What you thought we was the same? Still stay away from them clones. Niggas better leave me alone. Talking about niggas as low. Run with niggas who don't know you. Whoa, I make that zagging when city to city. You niggas not hot in your state. If it was money to get a hit Henny, we get it and never complain. Same go for the gang, and we split it up all the same. I can't really eat, let's stay straight, cause we go way back in the day. My day ones from back in the day, they still hang around me today. You wanna come round us, you can't. I'm rolling up loud, it's great. Lil' mama, she bad but complain, cause I'm too in love with my dreams. And I gotta get on the plane, and go get this money with Gigi. I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang.
I get the bag with the gang, taking that Zach to the bank. And it be all in my drink. You niggas is stupid, you think that shit change? You not even hot in your gang. Ain't nothing even hot about your gang. You niggas be lying about same. Be posting them pictures of guns for the fame. Niggas just look at me different now. Say that's your man, but he a clown. Don't fuck around with the fuck arounds. Little nigga, you should cut it out. Me and my niggas take different routes. Punch a bitch nigga all in his mouth. Hold up my nigga, we different now. I need a Robert, this is my style. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I get a bitch today, she probably a foreign model. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I'm with my gang today, tomorrow never promise.
OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake, then we link up with the gang.
I think I'm cute, I know I'm sexy. I've got the look that drives the girls, while I got the moves that really move them. I send chills up and down their spines. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, not your boy toy. I make them hot, I make them shiver. Things get weak whenever I'm around. They see me walk, they hear me talk. I make them feel like their God ain't real. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. That mic flip goes. Hands off the merchandise. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy, I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode. Folks, it is that time of the week once again. It is Saturday night, and that can only mean it is time for some late night counter apologetics. So before we get into it, let's go ahead and take care of our communion. Please say hi to your neighbor, greet your neighbor. Welcome everybody. You know, we need to have those rituals in our community so that they can enhance the spirit of doubt that is up in this house tonight. So y'all already know the drill. Please raise your glasses and hold on to your asses. Through him, with him, in the unity of the flying man. All glory and honor is yours who flight for our sins forever and ever. You may drink. I forgot my water. All right, and now let's go ahead and real quick have a communion song here. Let's see what's up with this album.
I've been jumping on the
Ready for takeoff?
Whoa.
Working hard on my stump, what's the problem? I ain't had shit to show, being modest. Now it's grams of the wax for my conscience. Brian James in LA, you're on college. I've been jumping on them planes like a hobby. Still moving with the pack like my partners. Shut the John on them jets cause we wildin'. But the bowl is a party on the island, moment of silence. So good, get back to the topic. Grew up, it was me and Flocka. Grandma's and Big T, this my mama. I ain't even for the pain. My pots flip, knew his name, that's it, never bothered. Mom said, you the man, son, you got this.
No.
Ever since I found a way to
I
go
hate
and
the
pop
player
shit.
on this website.
Hold up, blaze through a whole zip. Took a seat at the table of my first flip. Days in red roof with my first whip. Spent the money with the gang, never post pics. Seen the change in the game, had to coach it. Never let them take my wangs in the mold, bitch. Ever made in a month, nigga. Used to serve him at the minute just to front, nigga. Goddamn. Had to grow up quick, I made my own rules. Had my first child, got it jumping with music. Can't really hang with nobody who losing.
Nah.
I thought by now that you would go and get it, but I could hardly see niggas this distant. No, you get cropped if you not in the picture.
Let's go.
And I made that tag and went got a bag. Shots to the Henny and OG prescriptions, put rebel shit on the map. Took a leap from where I started at, started ballin' out, Chris Paul and Cass. Got him steady calling for the move, but I'm on a roll, gotta call him back. And that's all fact.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. All carry-on items should now be stowed securely, either in an overhead bin or under the seat in front of you. All aisles, exits, and bulkhead areas should now be clear. All electronic devices should now
It's
be turned off and stowed as they may interfere with
airplanemode.com,
aircraft navigation
baby.
and communication systems.
Get the music,
Once airborne, we're
buy the
limited to
music,
electronic devices.
buy the merch.
Items may not be
Get that merch.
Hardly plausible.
That merch is fire. What's up, YouTube punk? Now, folks, also, I can't type in block change things right now, so I won't be able to do that for this stream, but that's okay. Gang, y'all already know it's just time for us to get together, spend a little bit of quality time together, and you know, there's nothing like we like to do around here on Late Night Counter Apologetics like commiserating over the fact that ... I can't believe I used to be a Christian. It just baffles my mind that it didn't baffle my mind. Like how did I just accept all of this nonsense? Now, what we've got here is a video from the TMM channel. It's called Why Jesus' Miracles Are Not Impressive. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I keep a little list of things I want to respond to, show ideas, things that I need to keep into the rotation. But every once in a while, I'm just in like a fuck it mood, and I do like to just respond to things I've never seen. That's for those that don't know, that's actually kind of my deal. Like that's one of the things that I think it's one of the things I do, okay, is I just go, I haven't seen it, but we'll just make a fucking stream based on the fucking title of it, and I'll respond to that motherfucker in real time. First take only, motherfuckers. We do that shit live around here. So this is the perfect one of those examples. I was like, why Jesus' miracles are not impressive? That looks like a great opportunity to make fun of Christians. Let's go ahead and use that one. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So I can't really tell you what you're about to see because I don't know what you're about to see. Some of you may have already seen this, but I have no idea. I have no idea. All I'm going to say is when I hear the title, Why Jesus' Miracles Are Not Impressive, y'all already know. I'm just going, I can't believe I used to be a Christian. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this shit. Shout out to the man, Uncle Bobby, man. I'm not sure if we'll be doing a blackout tomorrow. Uncle Bobby's, dealing with some family time and things like that. But everything's good with us. We're excited to get back to you guys and looking forward to our next episode together. And in the meantime, man, Uncle Bobby, if you catch this, man, the people have been really excited about the recent episodes of Gin and Truth. As always, you've been knocking it out of the park, brother. So, yeah, man. Y'all got to remember, like, I'm not lying, man. Gin and Truth, those that know me, some of y'all, like, YouTube punk, I think, introduced me. It's like, that's like my favorite YouTuber. So it's pretty crazy to me that I get to host shows with a guy who's pretty much my favorite YouTuber. Like, I can't think of a whole lot of people I enjoy more. Fortunately, like the other people that come up are like, like Derek's up there too. And fortunately, I've gotten to do some stuff with him and got some stuff with him down the pipeline. Really, really feel fortunate in that regard. Anyway, let's go ahead and make fun of Christianity, y'all.
Here's a lady to explain why Christians are impressed by Jesus doing things that make no sense.
Whenever I would watch debates between Christians and atheists, the debates always seemed to turn back to the same topic, and that was the topic of God's character. They'd always start off talking about reasons for or against God's existence, but this core objection kept popping up everywhere, and it became clear to me that even when atheists and Christians were looking at the exact same story about God, they saw God completely differently.
She's talking about the moral arguments for and against God. There are two kinds of moral arguments against God as I see it. One says that if God is by definition good, then the God of the Bible cannot exist because that God does things that are not good. I find this to be a weak objection because people have different subjective ideas of what constitutes good. The other moral argument against God's existence is that he commits, or at least allows, evils that are not consistent even with his own morality. This is a stronger argument because it shows that God acts immorally even according to his own standards. This argument works regardless of whether you agree with God's morality or not.
All right, I'm going to weigh in here, and I think this is actually really interesting. Sorry, I realized a little bit of the top there is cut off. Maybe that's a little bit better. I gotta keep it real, and a lot of what I'm gonna come at with this is just experience with different Christians, and my own background as a Christian. But I don't know how other people score arguments, but I think that sometimes it's not necessarily all about that. Like a lot of times, at least for myself, right? Like I really think Christianity is super problematic. And I'm kind of, desperately trying to work through my whole feelings that like Christianity's basically been a generational curse upon my family. And for me, and I think for so many of the Christians I know, this first one, I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss. Sure, maybe philosophically it's like a weaker objection because people have different subjective ideas of what constitutes good. But I think that that's kind of the idea, right? Is that God is supposed to be good in a way that when Christians say certain things, they do these arguments, and I guess in that way I say it's interrelated because a lot of people kind of line up their conception of God's goodness with God's laws and the sort of feeling that what he does is good in a way that is obvious, that is paramount, right? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is, to me, and I know that that's a lot of what people do, but part of what I feel is a different perspective that I have than at least this content creator and a lot of the conversations I've been hearing lately, and I don't know this person that well, but I've only just watched some of their stuff, but to me, it's not about philosophy, right? Like, okay, so sure, a particular argument may be weaker from a philosophical perspective because there's so much variability in what people mean by the word good. But to me, that's almost like a philosophy bro perspective on it. Because to me, the goodness of God is so foundational to the, lived Christian experience that I'm familiar with, right? That literally, like, I come from a family of those people who literally, like, all the time, it's like that God is good, and you're supposed to say all the time, and then they're going to say all the time, and then you're supposed to say God is good. So to me, it's supposed to be about that sort of obvious, like where he shouldn't be doing things that are clearly immoral. All right, now on to this sort of second one where God acts immorally even according to his own standards. I get why that seems to be a stronger argument because it's almost like you're adopting less of a burden. You're sort of conceding, okay, let's concede that there's God, and then let's concede that, God's good or whatever, and then let's concede that God has these standards. Well, then, okay, now we can argue from there. And I get that. At the same time, a lot of people seem to rationalize all of that as, well, God just has the privilege to. And to me, that's the problem that both of these arguments face, right? Is that it's not that people don't recognize that God does bad things according to what we consider to be good, or that God establishes a standard, through his laws, but then turns around and just violates them, and we're supposed to just accept it because it's automatically okay because God did it. Right, that to me, that's the bigger problem here. Not that I have a problem with this analysis of the situation, but that's just my take, and I had to throw my take in there because that's what we're here for.
This argument works regardless of whether you agree with God's morality or not.
And let me give you an example of what I mean. How many of you are familiar with the story of Lazarus in John 11? Okay, good. So Lazarus was a friend of Jesus, and he got sick, and Jesus, who loved him, and the text says it specifically because he loved him, Jesus stays away and lets him die before going to see him, because his plan was to raise Lazarus from the dead so that the people would see his glory.
Well, that doesn't sound very nice, now does it?
So that's the story in a nutshell. Now I'm going to read you two descriptions of that story, one from a Christian and then one from an atheist, and you'll get an idea of how differently they see God. All right, the first one is from John Piper, who's a Christian. Here's what he said. Jesus said in verse 4, "This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." And then Piper goes on, "This illness will turn out for the glory of God and the glory of the Son of God. Therefore," verse 6, "love lets him die."
What does glory have to do with love? Sometimes when I ask apologists why God
Crazy.
created people, I get the answer that God created us to glorify him.
Such a
Why
good
is that
point.
a good thing? Why is glorifying God a good thing to do? I don't get the appeal of glorifying God. I don't get why so many God worshippers find the act of glorifying to be so meaningful and awesome. But I'm willing to accept that
get
this
'em.
might just be my own subjective reaction.
Love lets him
Yes,
die
100%.
because his death will
Also,
help
it's
him.
worse than that. It's worse than that. For those of you that didn't catch the last stream, let me just pull up a quick example. One of the examples I like is the Mormon temple in Salt Lake City. Just such a beautiful piece of architecture. And look at it at night. Just what just right is it just towers above in the city, and I've been out there, right? And the impression it leaves upon you is unremarkable. Is remarkable. Like you will not forget encountering this building. Where am I going with this? Well, that's what we're quote unquote glorifying. Right, so there's sort of this question of why should we be glorifying this God, right? And why is that a good thing? And that's an incredibly important point to make, that we've assigned all this value to glorifying God without evaluating, well, what's the value of glorifying this God? Like what, right? But to me, it's worse than that, because we're actually glorifying a fucking monster. We've committed not just to glorifying God, but to glorifying God above all else, literally to the point that we, there's that our most impressive architecture is often, or some of our most impressive architecture is often motivated by this God, and we run these cults and, all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's not just a problem of like, well, even if this God was good, like what's the value of glorifying it? It's also, holy shit, we are actually glorifying a fucking monster. And so it's just craziness to me, and it's why Christians are scary. I'm sorry, like it's a scary worldview that people want to disregard all this because it gives them some feelings or some hope, meaning, and purpose, or whatever. It allows them to avoid conflict. I don't know what it is, but there's no excuse to me as grown people to not be conscientious of this.
See, in more ways than they know, the glory of God.
Again, what does that have to do with love?
Okay, that's the Christian story. That's a Christian description. Now let's hear how atheist J.M. Green describes Jesus in the story of Lazarus. This is the guy who, in a very calculated manner, used Lazarus as a pawn in his exercise in self-promotion. This Jesus character in the gospel stories could easily have arrived in time to prevent the death of his friend. There would have been no need for Lazarus to have experienced the agony of dying, no reason for his sisters to suffer the grief of losing their brother. But he didn't. Why? Quite simply, because he wanted to impress people. He wanted to glorify himself and Yahweh. The suffering and death of Lazarus was useful to furthering their agenda. While this sort of behavior might be expected of a North Korean dictator, It is quite nauseating to see it venerated in a religion.
Right.
Okay, those are a little different, right?
Now, in the name of charity, I will infer that their agenda is something that sounds good, like saving people from hell. Maybe what's going on here is that Jesus let Lazarus die so he could bring him back to life, and that miracle will cause people to believe in Jesus and increase the probability of their salvation. Did this supposedly all-powerful God not have the power to convince people that he is worthy of being accepted as a savior without letting a guy die? If he didn't, then he's not all-powerful. He's not that glorious. If he did have that power, then he let this guy die needlessly, which is not a great thing to do. And in that case, he is therefore also not that glorious.
Facts. And also, I just want to add that Jesus is a fucking asshole because we're not on the same page about death. Most of us accept that we're going to die. And most of us will tell you, like, we're fine with the idea of being dead because we won't really experience anything. But it's it's going through the process of dying that we find to be terrifying. For many of us, it's the most terrifying thing that we have to face. Coming to grips with our mortality. And there's this way in which Jesus just plays games with life or death that I don't think real humanists could get behind. Because while we do accept the inevitability of dying, we definitely don't just like fuck around with letting someone suffer through the process of dying just so then we could make a point. And this is what I mean about believers not understanding the fundamentally immoral nature of these stories that's right in front of them. And I do find it quite alarming.
The atheist that this lady is citing expresses a subjective distaste for what Jesus did, but my problem with what Jesus did is that it doesn't make any sense. If Jesus is really glorious in the sense of being both all-powerful and supremely loving, then he would have the power to impress people in a way that does not require letting a guy die needlessly. For example, instead of letting a guy die and then resurrecting him, he could have resurrected someone who was already dead. That would have been at least as impressive. It should have had the same evangelical efficacy and would not have required letting a guy die a needless death.
Religion. Okay, those are a little different, right? So in these two descriptions, both the atheist and the Christian see that Jesus let Lazarus die so that people would see his glory. They both see that key point. But they disagree on whether or not that glory is actually desirable. They disagree on whether or not seeing more of Jesus is worth that suffering. One of them sees the beauty of God, and one of them does not.
What I see is that even if God is beautiful, and in fact, even if that beauty is so intense as to be worth letting a person die, the fact that God is all-powerful and therefore supposedly has the power to show us that beauty without letting anyone die means that Lazarus's death was still unnecessary and therefore unjustified. Even if the beauty of God is intense enough to be worth dying for, if God is powerful enough to show us that beauty without anyone dying, which he would have to be if he's truly all-powerful, then even a death which occurs in the service of showing that beauty is a death which occurs in vain. Even if you see God's beauty or glory as being worth a death, the fact that God has the power to show that beauty or glory without anyone dying makes any death which occurs for that purpose pointless.
So now, imagine that the Christian succeeds in convincing the atheist that the story of Lazarus in the Bible is true and that Jesus really is the Son of God. Will that atheist want to follow Jesus? I don't think so.
This actually demonstrates the pointlessness of apologetics for evangelism and proselytization. I've made this same argument myself. Simply convincing people that the God of the Bible exists will not cause people to worship him. So what exactly is the point of confronting atheists with apologetic arguments? It's extra ironic that this video is produced by an organization called Women in Apologetics when the lady featured in the video effectively admits that apologetics is pointless.
So now you see the real problem. The biggest difference between atheists and Christians is not that Christians believe God exists.
Also, I got to point this out, man. Like, this seems to me to be against the interest of women. And I think that it's problematic to use being a woman or a group of women to provide cover, essentially, for an organization that is responsible for the unequal treatment of women in many people's lives. Like, that's, for me, it feels very much like the Blacks for Trump thing, where I can accept, okay, that there are black people who vote for Donald Trump. That's fine. Like, have at it. I don't agree with it. I think it's incredibly problematic if you're gonna ignore the problems there. But okay, that's your choice. But setting that individual's choice aside, I see it as problematic that a campaign for someone who wholeheartedly supports racist policies uses groups of black people to bolster their agenda. And I always feel very uncomfortable with the black people that participate in that. And I'm just keeping it 100 with y'all, right? Just because you're black doesn't mean what you're doing isn't problematic. You can be a black person who's enabling racism against black people. Just is the way it is, unfortunately. And this feels like that same thing where there's that Christian spin to, oh, well, you know, Christianity is responsible for equality for women. And we're like, no. Many Christian women till this day will tell you, because of their belief in their faith, their husband or the man of the house is the head over their life as Christ is the head over the church. And I just, and even in my own conversations, like, it broke my heart to try to have a conversation with my mother, who I think she used to just be like a radical badass woman, and like her kind of inability to be real about the misogyny of the Christian faith when it was something I grew up hearing her complain about. It's just crazy how they get him.
But that Christians love him and delight in pleasing him, worshiping him, and being with him. The problem is ultimately a spiritual one.
Then what is the point of making apologetic arguments? Also, my disagreement with Jesus allowing Lazarus to die is not just a spiritual one, it's a logical one. Even if I felt that it was loving for Jesus to demonstrate his glory to people, I would still be confused as to why he thought the best way to do that was by letting someone die and then resurrecting him, when he could have resurrected someone who was already dead. That way, nobody who wasn't already dead would have to die.
Remember, the Bible says even the demons believe in God, but they don't worship him.
Further evidence that apologetics is pointless, even if God exists.
At root, this is a spiritual issue more than an intellectual one. And I like to get to that root by asking atheists who are complaining about the fact that God doesn't give more evidence of his existence.
I'm not sure that atheists complain about that. I, for example, don't really care that if a God exists, he doesn't show much evidence of himself. I'm just not convinced that a God exists. I'm perfectly fine with not being convinced. It's not something I would complain about.
I like to ask them this question.
I gotta be honest with you, gang. There is something here that bugs me, and it bothers me that people aren't honest about the lack of evidence, and that Christians go out of their way to claim that they have evidence and tell each other that there's all this evidence when there isn't. And I think people need to be mindful of this distinction. It's the difference again between somebody just being up in arms about something for no reason and somebody calling out problematic behavior. To me, it's like the same thing. I don't care if Christians sit around, let's say, and talk about their myths with one another. What's frustrating is when they start to assert that those myths are true and therefore use the word truth like 8,200 times in their conversations. Yeah, that's inviting the criticism. That's inviting people to tell you, like, this is just not true. And that's the deal here. It's like they need to let go of evidence as one of their buzzwords, because what it really is they come so confidently willing to proclaim the strength, the evidence and the strength of the evidence, and then we're left in the position of being like, yeah, sorry, that's just not what good evidence is, and then they have to play stupid about it. And I think that's at least what frustrates me, and I'm willing to bet there are other people who that distinction and nuance is also meaningful to as well. It's like, because again, it taps back into the persecution complex, right? Like, stop pretending that this is about, people are butthurt because they're demanding evidence and they're just so disappointed that you won't give it to them. It's like, no, you just go walking around proclaiming you have all this evidence. People pull your card on the evidence and your evidence just doesn't hold up. And I think the main issue is that believers apparently don't see it and they keep doubling down rather than being intellectually honest about the weakness of the case that they should be willing to see now that they've voluntarily ventured on into evidence land. It's like, oh, well, since you want to talk about evidence, which is usually a clear indication that you probably recognize you need some to support these claims, okay, then we walk through it. Now you realize you don't have the evidence, and now you want to come at us. No, it's just nonsense.
Question. If I were to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that God exists, would you then love him?
No. Therefore, you ought to stop bothering me with your goofy arguments.
That question gets to
Exactly,
the heart
Wayne.
of the real issue.
If I can't prove that the
atheist.
teapot is
There's a reason why
it
Jesus
must
said,
be there.
no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him.
And that passage shows the pointlessness of not only apologetics, but of proselytization in general. Even your own scripture gives you plenty of reason to stop knocking on our doors and handing us pamphlets.
This goes back to what I said earlier about our starting off as being rebels against God. Ephesians 2 says that we were all by nature children of wrath.
How exactly do you square that with the assertion that we are created in God's image? How can we be both created in God's image and children of wrath?
Yeah. there's a really interesting take on it. You never know. You never know where somebody's gonna go with something like why Jesus' miracles are not impressive. But I like that direction. The sort of petty cruelty involved in them. The sort of the anti-humanity of all of it. I really, it's just so troubling to me because I feel like part of this journey of being an atheist, especially someone like myself, who I know I think I talk about this a lot, but I'm kind of realizing it. Like I'm realizing that I'm still dealing with religion in my own way, right? Like I'm not this necessarily super sure-footed atheist that has it all worked out. I'm still reeling from the loss of my faith in a way. I'm still working through and rebuilding what my life looks like with the consequences of people in my personal life realizing that I'm an atheist. And there have been consequences. And they're serious and they're real and they're very negative. And they pose real psychological challenges because, at least for me, I'm someone who I've always, sort of wanted to do the right things that people I care about would understand and appreciate. And it's sometimes hard coming to grips with realizing that sometimes your journey takes you to a place where you can no longer relate to people that you're really close to, and that's still something I'm learning how to deal with. And part of what's becoming so interesting about that is, like I said, I can't believe I used to be a Christian. And it's becoming so clear to me the immorality involved in the faith. It's becoming so obvious to me, that this is some really bad juju. Yet this is the very point that so many of us cannot make with the religious people in our lives. I think I should do more content about social issues, more content about politics. But I do need to keep doing, I do want to keep doing apologetics counter apologetics, because I'm just not right with religion, and not just what I see religious people doing in our world, but the influence that I see it having. But at the same time, it's like I feel like we're having this conversation earlier, and I've been trying to do my best to listen to Maya. I'm not always that great, but I really appreciate some of Maya's insight, and it's been a really challenging point, right? That like, I don't necessarily I don't know how many Christians listen to this stuff. I don't know how many. I don't know how much I don't know how many people we get through to on this stuff. I feel like it's more like journaling. It's more like having a vlog that's a diary where I can vent. But I don't know how much the issue is there. Because I don't know that how many believers are ever engaging with. But all these other issues are definitely impacting what happens in, what happens out here. But to me, this type of stream, this type of video that we were reviewing, this is where those two things come together. Because I really do feel that faith in these Christianity is immoral. And I feel like I'm not able to have this conversation with so many believers, but this is the conversation I want to have. Why do you want to worship this monster? And I feel that way so much about God, but what I like about this video was that it really pinned that to Jesus. Who cares if this asshole had the power to raise somebody from the dead? Why did he sit there and let him watch this person die? For his glory? Do you hear yourself when you say something like that? You sound like a fucking monster to me. I mean, I think it's a point to be made that you can't negotiate with Nazis. They're here for it. They live for the cruelty. I don't know how else to take Christians at this point. My feeling inside is that Christianity is an excuse for good people to let out just to become bad people. I mean, am I supposed to believe a Christian who tells me they didn't notice that God kills everybody in Genesis? Like they've never heard of Noah's Ark, and they never noticed that it's really weird that this all-powerful and all-loving God literally killed everything. Like I'm supposed to legit. Again, I know a lot of us used to be Christians, okay, but we worked through that, right? Because we were honest people. And when we started to think about the issues, we thought through the issues and we let that path lead to where it led. The question is, what's up with these other folks? What, they never noticed that? They never noticed that, God was, that there's an instruction manual for slavery in the Bible and that God never came out and condemned it? They didn't notice it was fucked up to have Jesus have to die to forgive people's sins? I mean, come on, y'all. At some point, we just have to stare this bullshit in the face and call it what it is and deal with it from there. And if people are so dependent and so they need this to be true so much that they can't hang, then we just got to let them know they can't hang. All right, but y'all, look, it's been a long ass week. There's been so much fucking going on. And I'm still dealing with this whole moving situation and everything, so I'm tired of shit. I want to make myself a decent dinner here and relax and gather with my friends and have some fun, and then I'm going to plug in the PlayStation and do some racing. I want to have some fun, play some games. I just want to unwind a bit, man. So, yeah, I'm gonna call it here. I really do appreciate everybody showing up, and please do, like the video. It helps. To be honest with you, I feel like it's funny. Like there's been a lot of drama going around lately, and a lot of people have inferred that I did the drama to get views, and I did the drama I've been involved in this drama for my own benefit, but I haven't addressed that shit on stream, and the reason is because I don't want to bring that to this channel. But I'd be lying to you guys if I didn't tell you I think it's hurt my channel. So not only did I not do it for my benefit, not only have I not tried to do anything, in terms of, directing it towards the benefit of this channel, it's hurt this channel. Really has. Like, I don't think I've lost subscribers, but the viewership of the streams is not what it was prior to, and definitely just in terms of so many people falling out of favor. Like I know, like I could go through and list names of people who have just decided not to fuck with me over a lot of the backlash from a lot of this stuff. So it's just been interesting to watch people, say what they say, and I'm like, I don't know if people have been paying attention, but this stuff has really not benefited me at all. It kind of sucks in that way, but again, I say all that just to say when I say I appreciate those of you that are here, I really do mean I appreciate it, because it's been a rough few weeks, and I think there are a sizable number of people in this community that know what's up, and I don't need to get into it, but y'all have just continued to show your support and continue to be here and not get too distracted in the noise. I really appreciate it. For my part, I've done my best to, when I can stream, do streams about things that matter and keep moving forward. So I appreciate the support, and thank y'all so much. And I'll definitely see you next time. And I think tomorrow, I expect that I'll be doing a hot program with my one black friend, so that's probably the next time I stream. And yeah, otherwise, appreciate everybody. I'm gonna try to have some fun tonight. Do me a favor if y'all wanna, stay up on everything. Not only should you just link up with us and gather, but subscribe to the other channels. Like I said, the last couple weeks have been crazy, but I do intend to do more on the Hunter Biden's Laptops channel in terms of just sharing what's going on in Gather, and doing some work streams and showing you guys like what I've been doing with like Avita Ed. Like I've been putting content up there, and it's been kind of fun stuff. So if you want to see more, definitely subscribe to the Hunter Biden's Laptops channel. And also we're trying to bring the casino back. So subscribe to the casino. We're going to be doing gaming and stuff over there. And yeah, appreciate it, gang. We'll see you soon. Have fun tonight. And appreciate everybody for being here. Said I'm gone. Poof.
Zach, why she wanna leave me alone? Saying all I do is wrong. No rights when they been left turns. Playing that she gotta let it burn. Saying that the house not a home. Sunshine cause she heard it all before. Sometimes she don't wanna be alone. Most times she don't want me gone. She don't know I try my own. She don't know I sprung in the sun, but I'm going in the winter, so we good to the fall. Remember how I told you I get it and I win. Now I'm got it, you ain't answer my call. Wonder if I've been moving too strong. Maybe I just been moving too balls. Really really hate when the feeling get lost. Nowadays she just dodge my calls, and the game don't lose like Paul. Young legend Miss John like Wall, and I wish you never met like Call. Dick game lay it down like law. Made plans but you canceled them all. I was just trying to splurge in the mall. Now I'm home stacking bread till you call. It's time to roll. She tryna slide. We smoking Zah. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I get between your thighs, girl. You like my rib, you know I need you by my side, girl. It's time to roll. She tryna ride. We smoking. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I get between your thighs, girl. You like my rib, you know I need you by my side, girl.
Be smoking that side. I'm tryna get high. She said that she not ready for lust. I waste my time. I got demons in my closet I can't hide.